Where I want to start the conversation today is with talking about the idea of perspective. We live in a country of roughly 360 million people, and I say we because the audience here is overwhelmingly continental United States. Yes, I've seen Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico pop up occasionally. I've even seen Russia on the radar from time to time, which is pretty interesting. But overwhelmingly, the listenership here is continental United States. And while we do have different life experiences, we've been raised in different states, we do consume the same TV, we watch the same sporting events. You would think that while differences would exist, philosophically, we'd be more aligned than we would different. Wall Street Journal released a poll recently where they asked responders two questions. Is America, the first of which, is America the greatest country on earth? And those who answered were split into two buckets. Those who identified as being registered Republican and the other bucket being registered Democrats. 91% of Republicans believe that America is the greatest country on earth. 61% of Democrats believe that to be true. A 30% spread based solely on what political party you're affiliated with. The follow-up question was, if you work hard and apply yourself, are you likely to succeed in America? 85% of Republicans believe that to be true. 53% of Democrats do, just over half. We have wildly different perspectives on what's going on in this country. Now, over the past few days, reports have started to come out that our 45th president is going to be announcing a bid for 2022 sometime over the next week or two. And people on the left are just ready to barf. President Trump to them is the pits. They want nothing to do with that guy. However, there's also a growing segment within the Republican Party that says, we can't run it back with this guy again. We need to get someone fresh. We need someone different being the face of the party. Now, if there's a chance to tie it into betting markets, you know I'm going to do it. Right now, President Trump is 40% likely to capture the GOP, which does put him in first place. However, keep in mind that also means he wins the party less than half of the time. Now, as a collective, the nation is acknowledging we don't want anything to do with this guy. We don't want him to run again. Whereas I would push back and say it's actually exactly what we need to have happen. And my reasoning would be, so if he's your boy, you want him to run. But if you're someone that falls into the opposite camp, where you think he's the devil, imagine what another loss would do for his brand. Back-to-back losses to President Biden takes away all of the mystique, all of the winning, all of whatever the pizzazz is. It's all gone if he loses again. And imagine if he gets stomped by Governor DeSantis and doesn't even win his own political party. There's no path forward for him at that point. There's no excuses. There's no way to get out of it. So I get the pushback, and I get some people being a little bit nervous that we're going to have to deal with him for a little bit longer. But my belief is President Trump running in 2022 is actually the best possible thing to happen to this country. Next up, we'll talk about what life would be like under Steve as the king. However, we'll take a quick break to hear from today's show sponsor, Lincoln Realty, helping home buyers and sellers throughout the capital region. I've been a real estate investor for over a decade and operate the office here as the licensed broker. If you or somebody that you know has a real estate related need, let's connect. Steven at sjlincoln.com. That's my email address, goes directly to me. Or visit sjlincoln.com/book a call, where you can schedule a Zoom or telephone call with me. Again, that email address is steven at sjlincoln.com or sjlincoln.com/book a call. Let's get back to the show. There are 3 areas of need I thought we could talk together today about, of which I'm an expert in exactly 0. I'm just a product of the SUNY education system. But first, let's talk about immigration. What problem are we facing? Over the past 12 months, 3 million people have been detained at the southern border, according to Customs and Border Patrol. It's estimated roughly 1 million more made it across undetected. And during his presidency, President Biden has allowed in 1 million asylum seekers who have yet to have their hearing. Now, under King Steve, where you are all my peasants, I'm in the talent acquisition business. I would set the record for most approved immigration applications while also setting the record for most deportations. Now let's unpack that. There's no great one answer to what it means to be American, but someone willing to give up everything they have for a chance to better their lives and to better the lives of their families. That sounds like to me about as good of an answer as I can think of. I want these ambitious people. I want these risk takers. Last week, we talked about the whiners, the complainers. I'd love to arrange some kind of a swap where we could send out all of the complainers, and in return, we could take all of the ambitious people looking to improve their lives. Now, we aren't doing this for free. We're charging the country of origin, perhaps on some kind of a sliding scale, depending on how talented, what kind of education, what kind of skill set the incoming people have. Ideally, the more talented they are, it would be, I'm thinking, less of a burden to integrate them into society, so perhaps we charge less. But if the home country says, no, we're not paying you, that's fine. America funds roughly 3/4 of the world via different types of aid, so we can start slashing that number. And because we're letting in so many people, the incentive to cut the line, if you will, becomes less and less. So we are going to be punitive on those who try to take shortcuts without going through the proper steps. If you get caught, I'm thinking deportation, and you can't reapply for some number of years, 5 to 10 years. But the most important thing is here, we want to bring in as many talented people as possible. And some of you are saying, well, Steve, it's going to be way too crowded. Well, yeah, it's going to be. But currently we have 5 million jobs available that no one wants to take. And we have an entire generation of kids who elected for college over going to trade school. We need people that can build stuff. But yes, traffic on 87 is about to get a lot worse. Next, let's tackle the most important problem facing our country today. This comes to us courtesy of the website statistia.com, where back in September, folks were asked, what's the most important problem facing America today? They didn't say inflation, they didn't say homelessness, and they didn't even say crime. The number one response was dissatisfaction with government. I was so happy to see this. Politicians are the worst. So how do we make it better? We eliminate consecutive terms. Currently, senators are elected for 6 years, members of House of Representatives for 2. But the minute they get elected, what do they start doing? They start campaigning again for the next time. When are we actually doing work? Senator Schumer spoke at my graduation at Nazareth. This was many years ago. And a few years after that, I go to graduate from Albany, and he's back again doing another speech. And it was the same jokes, the same speech. What a racket. And then sure enough, a few years after that, my sister graduates from RIT. And who's back again? It's Chuck Schumer giving the same speech. This guy's unbelievable. You get elected, you do the job you're elected to do, and when you're finished, then you can go start campaigning. That's on your own time. You're not doing it on taxpayer time. And then the question is, but Steve, what am I supposed to do for money if I can't continue to be in office? How about you go get a real job? Let's see how the private market values your skill set. That way you can come back in 6 years and tell all of the voters all of the wonderful things you've accomplished in the private sector during your time away from office. Or what I suspect is going to happen is we're going to have a lot of folks who are relegated to making copies and filing papers because companies don't value whatever skill set being a politician makes you prime example for. Let's find out who's actually talented. No more consecutive terms. Last, we're going to go big game hunting on this one, and we're going to talk about guns. What's the problem that needs to be solved? 20,000 people die in this country each year from gun violence, and an additional 75,000 are severely injured. So roughly 100,000 people each year are experiencing traumatic events due to firearms. On a per capita basis, we are 10 to 15 times more violent than a majority of European countries, 50 times more violent than Germany, and over 100 times you're more likely to get shot here than you are in England. These are terrifying numbers. So what's the fix? I'm interested in private sector solutions for government problems, and public safety is a government problem. In the state of New York, in order to drive a car, you have to have something called liability insurance. And that's not for you, that's to protect everyone around you. If you have a dangerous record, you're a bad driver, your premiums are going to be higher than those who are assessed to be good, safe drivers. Let's try this with guns. You take a gun safety class. You pass a mental health assessment. A private industry insurer is going to view you a lot more favorably than, say, someone with a violent criminal background. Now, keep in mind, no one here is taking away your guns. It's simply protecting those who are in jeopardy of being hurt around you. Just like if you were to run someone over while you're drunk driving, insurance needs to be there to pay out premiums to those who are negatively affected. The NRA will not like this. Oh, but what if someone can't get insured? Great, you do it. You take on that responsibility. You take on the liability. This is actually on the table with New York State Senate Bill S-2857A, and I would love to see it get some legs. That is it for today's show. I think I've done a pretty good job ostracizing my friends on both the left and the right with some of the topics today, but hopefully you found it fun. I mean, something a little bit different than real estate every episode, right? If you ever want to connect with me, you know how to do it. Stephen at sjlincoln.com. That's my email address that goes directly to me. There are no new agents or receptionists, people learning on the job here. If you hire me, for better or worse, you get me. So again, Stephen at sjlincoln.com, sjlincoln.com/book a call. Follow us on all the social platforms. I always push you towards Instagram. That seems to be the most active and the best way to kind of learn a bit what I'm up to, part real estate, part dog pics, part whatever I'm up to for the day. So SJ Lincoln Realty on all the socials, sjlincoln.com/book a call. That's how you can schedule something with me. sjlincoln.com, Stephen at sjlincoln.com is my email address. Thanks for listening. I know there are infinite number of content available to you, so you spending a few minutes with me is actually a pretty cool thing. So if you ever have suggestions for the show, I'd love to hear from you. Questions, I haven't gotten any in a while. I really would love it if people reached out with some questions, some content ideas. Again, one last time, email address, Stephen at sjlincoln.com. Direct messages are always wide open on the social platforms. Thanks for listening. We'll talk again soon.